Good evening, I'm Darren Mara at the top stories. The US president vows to fight a court decision blocking his travel ban.
We are a nation of laws. Those laws apply to everybody in our country, and that includes the President of the United States.
A message to the West as hundreds of thousands of people rally in Iran. And protesters attempt to disrupt an anti-Islam event in Melbourne. US President Donald Trump is vowing to fight on despite a court ruling against his travel ban. The administration said a temporary ban on migrants from 7 Muslim-majority countries was needed to ensure national security, but judges ruled it couldn't be legally justified.
The battle may not be over, but this a big win.
This is a complete victory for the state of Washington. We are a nation of laws, and as I have said, as we have said from day one, that those laws apply to everybody in our country, and that includes the President of the United States.
The President tonight tweeting in all caps, "See you in court, the security of our nation is at stake." Former rival Hillary Clinton taking a more minimalist approach. Cornered by reporters in the White House, President Trump defiant.
It's a political decision, and we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it.
So you believe the judges made a political decision?
We have a situation where the security of our country is at stake.
It's the role of the courts to say what the law is and to serve as a check on the executive branch. And that's what the court has done in this opinion, in this excellent opinion, this well-reasoned, careful, thoughtful opinion.
Written by a panel of judges appointed by both Republican and Democratic presidents, the ruling counters the government's claim that the president's orders on national security are unreviewable, saying that runs contrary to the fundamental structure of our constitutional democracy.
Many American Muslim communities across this country felt a great deal of relief today. I think there's been a lot of, frankly, fear and concern among American Muslims that the president would attempt to carry out vicious and discriminatory campaign promises, including banning Muslims from entering the U.S.
While this judgment maintains the temporary suspension of the travel ban, a court will still need to decide on the merits of the executive order itself. In the meantime, the president could rescind it and write a new one with his very new Attorney General.
So help me God.
After a rocky confirmation, Jeff Sessions taking aim at illegal immigration.
We need to end this lawlessness that threatens the public's safety, pulls down wages of working Americans.
The president celebrating with 3 more executive orders targeting crime and drug cartels.
All very important.
And as his pick for the Supreme Court continues his meet and greets on the Hill.
Wow.
The talk of these corridors, Neil Gorsuch's critique of the president's attacks on judges as demoralising and disheartening.
His comments were misrepresented.
The senators he's met with disagree.
Disheartening is a great word. Judge Gorsuch and I actually talked about that, and frankly, he got pretty passionate about it.
This is about affirming the independence of the judiciary from the executive. And today the courts did just that. Nastasia Tay, SBS World News.
Donald Trump has moved to improve on his rocky start to relations with China. In their first phone conversation, he gave President Xi Jinping what he wanted, a vow to respect the US One China policy, which includes sovereignty over Taiwan. The White House describes the call as extremely cordial, and tonight China has responded with thanks.
Touching down in Washington, Shinzo Abe, Japan's leader, invited to talks over golf at Donald Trump's Florida retreat. Observers say such friendliness wouldn't have escaped China's notice. Perhaps no coincidence in a late-night phone call between Mr. Trump and President Xi Jinping, their first. Mr. Trump had previously hinted that the One China policy wasn't set in stone. Now this, broadcast on state television.
Mr. Trump stressed that he fully understands the significant importance of the US government abiding by the One China policy.
Having early on taken a call from Taiwan's leader, Mr. Trump has since been under pressure from advisers to mend fences with Beijing. In a statement from the White House, President Trump agreed at the request of President Xi to honour our One China policy. Representatives of the United States and China will engage in discussions and negotiations on various issues of mutual interest.
The One China policy is the political foundation for the US-China relationship. We appreciate that President Trump said the US government adheres to the One China policy during the phone call.
After President Trump's criticisms of Iran over missile tests, an advisor to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei has this warning.
They would not dare carry out military threats against Iran. The Americans know very well that Iran and its allies in the region would retaliate very hard and make America face dark days to come.
Mr. Trump's preparedness for discussions with foreign leaders is being questioned in light of revelations regarding his recent phone call with Vladimir Putin. The Russian leader mentioned New START, the Obama-era nuclear arms reduction treaty, Mr. Trump pausing to ask aides what that was, then telling Mr. Putin it was a bad deal, favouring Russia. However, many Republicans see Mr. Trump as far too soft with Moscow. 9 senators writing, urging a tough-minded stance over cyber hacking and Russian aggression in Ukraine. John McCain wasn't among them, but continued his warnings over Russia.
What we need to do is understand Vladimir Putin for what he is, a murderer and a thug.
Senator McCain had criticised the White House for describing a recent US raid in Yemen as a huge success, despite the death of a Navy SEAL. Mr. Trump hit back on Twitter, and it was personal. He called Senator McCain a loser. Raina Sarampayat, SBS World News.
Iranians are marking the 38th anniversary of their 1979 Islamic Revolution with massive nationwide rallies. Hundreds of thousands of people marched in the streets of Tehran and other cities amid rising tensions with the US. Donald Trump says Iran has been put on notice over a recent ballistic missile test. While addressing crowds in Tehran, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani warned Iran would not bow to any threats or what he called warmongering policies. Protesters in Melbourne have prevented people boarding a bus due to take guests to a dinner hosted by anti-Islam group the Q Society. The dinner was to be attended by former Liberal Senator Cory Bernardi and Liberal MP George Christensen. The location of the dinner was kept a secret, even to the invited guests. Vast parts of Australia are suffering under an extreme heatwave, and authorities are warning of catastrophic fire conditions. With temperatures exceeding 40 degrees in many parts of central and eastern Australia, power blackouts are also possible.
It's not always fun in the sun, particularly if you're practically melting as you try to work.
There's nothing really you can do on these days. Just battle it out. Yeah, it's hard to work, but yeah, still got to get it done.
In many parts of the country, today was a scorcher. Sydney's beaches typically crowded as a result. Other Australians finding their own unique way to cool down.
Drink lots of ice, and at the end of the day, a few beers.
Over these next few days, the heat wave will be widespread, from Central and South Australia to the East Coast. The areas feeling the heat the most, temperatures across Western Sydney today well over 40 degrees. Canberra is expected to surpass 41 degrees 2 days straight. Today in Hay, the hottest place recorded in New South Wales, 46.3, while yesterday the South Australian town of Tarcoola peaked above 48.
We are resourced and we are prepared for everything that will come our way.
The heat wave is being aggravated by low humidity and strong winds. In New South Wales, bushfire conditions predicted to be the worst in 4 years.
We have widespread hot temperatures, dry conditions across New South Wales, resulting in all but the coastal strip of the state being very high fire dangers.
The East Coast could also suffer statewide blackouts due to a surge in power usage as people try to cool down. Homeowners warned to use their electricity wisely.
This is not the time to be wasting energy in any way.
Queensland pumping excess power out to assist New South Wales.
We're expecting Queensland Power to be chiming in through the interconnector to help our bigger New South Wales neighbours meet their power needs.
A reminder too to meet our pets' needs.
They cool off with their feet, so cool surfaces, lots of cold water, lots of drinking water. They love it. Once they get nice and cool, it works perfectly.
In stark contrast, Perth suffered one of its wettest February days on record. The Weather Bureau calling it a once-in-a-century event, with more torrential rain to come. Omar Dabaj, SBS World News.
Well, coming up after the break, frantic rescue efforts to try and save hundreds of stranded whales. Let's check the finance figures now. When the Australian share market closed stronger with gains across the board, investors piled into the energy, resource and financial sectors. Health insurers rose after receiving federal approval to hike their premiums from April 1. Markets in Europe are stronger in early deals, and one Australian dollar is buying 76 1/3 US cents. To sport, and as we heard earlier, this record-breaking summer continues to smash records, and it's affecting sporting events too. Tonight's A-League clash was postponed by more than an hour in Adelaide due to temperatures close to 40 degrees. But once the clash got underway, it was a hugely one-sided affair. Perth's Spanish import Diego Castro scoring twice in a 5-0 victory that moves Glory up to 4th on the ladder. The Indigenous All-Stars have cruised to an impressive victory in the clash against the World All-Stars. Jonathan Thurston and Ash Taylor, they pulled the strings as the Indigenous side scored a point a minute to lead 16-0 early on. Well, Canberra fans will be sweating on the fitness of Jared Croker after he was forced off with a knee injury early in the second period. The Indigenous team ran out winners by 26 points. In the Women's AFL, the Western Bulldogs have lost at home to the Adelaide Crows. The Dogs led early, but a superb goal by Jess Sidneri turned the tide, and the Crews stayed in control after that, running out 25-point winners. And in the early NBL game in Auckland, the New Zealand Breakers have kept their faint finals hopes alive against Melbourne United. Finn Delaney put the Breakers in front late in the third quarter, and they never looked back. Melbourne must beat Perth on Sunday and hope other results go its way to make the finals. An Austrian cyclist has taken on a dangerously steep descent for a record attempt. Max Stockel reached a top speed of 167 kilometres an hour in ideal conditions on his run down the mountain in the Chilean desert. He wore a specifically designed suit with an inbuilt airbag for safety, thank God, to help him break the speed record for mountain biking on gravel. Well, after the gruelling challenge, the cyclist said he would celebrate his victory by spending some time with his family. Well, to the weather now, and a possible shower in Perth, but extreme heat again tomorrow in Sydney, Brisbane, Canberra and Alice Springs. Looking further afield, fine in Auckland, partly cloudy in Wellington and Christchurch, rain for Samoa and Tahiti. In Southeast Asia, fog in Bangkok, rain in Denpasar, Jakarta and Honiara, thunder for Kuala Lumpur. Further north, fine and cold in Beijing, Seoul and Shanghai, warmer but cloudy in Manila, Hong Kong and Hanoi. Heading west, winter fog in Delhi, fine and warm in Mumbai, rain for Beirut and Tehran. To Europe, snow in Stockholm, Moscow, Paris and Istanbul, fog in Rome, a maximum of -5 in Warsaw. In Africa, thunder for Johannesburg and Lagos, rain for Casablanca, cloudy for Algiers and Dakar. South America now, fine in Lima and Santiago, warm and partly cloudy in Panama City and Rio de Janeiro, warm with thunder for Asuncion. And for North America, cloud in New York, Chicago, Washington and Dallas, fine in Denver and Mexico City. Further north, rain in Toronto, also in Vancouver. That's the world this Friday. All tonight's stories are online, and for news around the clock, you can go to our website. You can also tune into English language news tomorrow morning between 5 and 7:30 here on SBS. I'm Darren Mara. Good night.